Tuesday, May 11th, 2021, regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. It is 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the Board Secretary to call the roll.
Mrs. Hostler,
Here.
Mrs. Arthinas,
Here.
Mrs. Stufen,
Present.
Mr. Collins,
I'm here.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Here.
Mrs. Kaforia,
Here.
and I am present.
We have all 7 board members present, and the board will be going into closed session. So if I could have a motion to go into closed session.
I move that the board move into closed session for the purposes of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. 5 ILCS 120/2C1 for collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 ILCS 120/2C2, the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the public body, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired. 5 ILCS 120/2C5, litigation when an action affecting and or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent. 5 ILCS 120/2C11, and the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body. 5 ILCS 120/2C6.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Mrs. Troutman, second by Mrs. Hostler. I will call the vote. Mrs. Troutman,
Yes?
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yep.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mrs. Conforio, yes. 7 ayes, no nays. The board will go into closed session. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, May 11th, 2021 regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. The board has been in closed session since 6 o'clock for items listed on the agenda and including purchase of property, which is 5 ILCS 122C6. Governor Pritzker continues the disaster declaration related to the COVID-19 pandemic for all Illinois counties. Currently, Phase 4 guidelines are in place, which limits the number of individuals in a space. In accordance with Board Policy 2.230, members of the public who wish to offer in-person public comment are able to do so at this meeting. To adhere to Phase 4 guidelines, there will be a limited number of seats available in the meeting room. The Board President will call the public comment speaker to the podium based on the order in which the speaker signed in. A sign-up sheet will be available at the entrance to the building until 7 o'clock. In accordance with Board Policy 2.230, members of the public will be allocated up to 3 minutes per speaker. The Board President has set 30 minutes as the length of time for the public comment section of this meeting. Members of the public may stay in the meeting space if the limited number of seats remain available. The board meeting continues to be live streamed for viewing on the district's website. Written public comments can also be provided where the board will acknowledge the written comment, but they will not be read. See Agenda Item 1B for the links. Electronic public viewing can be found at Board Docs by clicking the video button. So at this time, I would ask that we all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so to begin tonight's meeting, we have a recognition, which is a great way to begin. The PTA Reflections, Students Advancing to the National Level, and Mr. Collins is going to do the honors tonight. Yeah, there he's.
Recipients, come on up. Oh, come on. Come stand right here so we can all see you. And we appreciate your great job. Come stand right here and look this way. All right, you guys stay right there while I read this proclamation. You guys got to get used to this. You're going to be honored a lot in your lifetimes. Whereas the Illinois PTA, a statewide volunteer organization dedicated solely to the welfare of children and youth in the home, school, and community, was founded on May 30th, 1900, and has since worked diligently to support public schools and ensure that all children and youth have equal opportunities and access to quality education. And whereas the arts and the National PTA Reflections Program supports student success and serves as a valuable tool for building strong partnerships in the school community. And whereas Reflections is the National PTA Arts Program that asks children to create works of art in any of 6 different arts categories: dance, choreography, film production, literature, music composition, photography, and visual arts, reflecting upon a different theme each year. The theme for the 2021 school year being I Matter Because. Whereas, starting with the local PTA, student projects advance through a judging system through council, district, region, state, and national levels of the program. The national PTA reflection submissions are reviewed by experts in visual, literary, and performing arts, where judges look for interpersonal interpretation on the program theme that best exemplify the creativity and technical skill. And whereas the following students have been chosen to advance to the national competition: Shay Coleman, Hawthorne Elementary, film and production, and a work called Dream Matters; Evan Seiler, Field Elementary, literature, a work called I Am; Elise Proctor, Fisher, music composition, called I Matter; and Charles Connor, Lincoln Elementary, in photography, work called The Towering Tree. And today, we learned that Shay Coleman received an award of merit for her work at the national competition. Congratulations. Whereas these accomplishments bring pride and prestige to Hawthorne Elementary School, Field Elementary School, Conrad Fisher Elementary School, Lincoln Elementary School, District 205, and our community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education and Administration of Elmhurst Community Unit District 205 express their congratulations to these students for their outstanding academic accomplishment. Congratulations.
Yay!
How about will you honor us by doing a fist bump around the entire table?
That's cute.
Or just a wave. Your choice. If you want somebody else to do it,
Okay. Okay. You know, it's nice, isn't it? It's like little kids. All right, next on the agenda is public comments. There will be 30 minutes allocated for public comments, with up to 3 minutes per public comment speaker concerning items on this agenda, as well as communication, petitions, reports From citizens or representatives of other public agencies, I do not have anyone on the list for public comment. So I will just ask Mrs. Troutman, are there any written comments?
There are 20 written submitted comments.
So those will be posted in the next 24 to 48 hours, I believe, okay, on the website. All right, so next is reports and presentations, technology devices school year 2021-2022.
Thank you, Ms. Caforio. If you could take a look, I actually added a presentation next to your seats on your desk. There was a couple just last minute minor updates. I wanted to make sure you had it, and then we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty right now with the screen here in the room, so that's why I gave it to you, the paper copy. So this is our technology update, our proposed technology update for school year 2021-22. I've broken apart the outline into 4 categories: people, process, product, and price. This structure is similar to the way that information was presented in years past. Now, first I'd like to highlight the people within our technology department. If you take a look at our technology department, it's broken up into 4 primary teams. The technology services team, the multimedia and audiovisual team, the network services team, and the data and information systems team. Our tech services team is responsible for the day-to-day technology operations of close to 2,000 faculty and staff across all 13 locations. Mr. Mark Dyrek is our technology services manager. Mr. Kevin Pacheco is our senior support specialist. We have Jan Dolan, Carlos Jimenez, Molly Markcourt, and Jesus Sandoval as our technology support specialists. I also want to extend a special thank you to Mr. Alex Cook, Kevin Budson, and Drew Yazdik, who stepped up to help our tech services team as various needs arose. These include device usability of faculty and staff, laptops and tablets, learning space functionality, including classroom displays, interactive flat panels and projectors, digital signage, sound, and common areas, including learning labs, our mobile device management solutions to support iPads, Chromebooks, and interactive flat panels, and end user integration support. Our multimedia AV team, we had all new team members this year. And I'd like to formally welcome Mr. Ben Mora and Mr. Tom Shields. You may have seen them a little earlier. They're right outside the room. They're responsible for supporting all of the multimedia and audiovisual needs across the district. This year, they supported efforts like board meeting streaming, the soon-to-be York High School graduation, and the middle school, high school display pilot, just a couple examples. They work in tandem with our tech services team to support the audiovisual needs of our classrooms and other learning environments. I also want to extend a big thank you to Chris Finelli and John Schulte for stepping in to help with various needs throughout the year. Our network services team is Mr. Sami Mohammed and Peter Smith. They are responsible for supporting our enterprise level network. They manage the network and all components across 13 locations. I'm going to be a little bit vague here, just as a consideration for network security, but this looks like 600 plus access points, multiple servers and switches, device integration, troubleshooting and support, battery backups and management, supporting our security system made up of hundreds of cameras across the district, and supporting our print workflow of roughly 75 multifunction printers. They're also responsible for network upgrades, like moving away from a traditional internet service provider to the new Illinois Century network, which we have and is saving the district a lot of money. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And facilitating the installation and integration of our new internet service connection at York High School, at the York High School Stadium, which is, from what I believe, is the first time in our history that the stadium's had internet there. Our data and information systems team is made up of 3 members, Mr. Dave Fortner, Antonio Alvarez, and Ms. Chris Olson. The team is responsible for the overall usability of various data systems and the data integrity of those systems. They manage all PowerSchool student management system operations for things like backups, storage needs, and retrieval functions, managing student learning groups, attendance accountability, and others. They manage the automation of systems integrations to services like Clever, Apple School Manager, and our health certification system. They also manage our registration process, state reporting requirements, and support our schools regarding yearly PowerSchool procedures. The administrative and support team is made up of Jenny Reichert and myself. Jenny has done a phenomenal job this year managing our phone system needs and facilitating our overall ordering process. She has also provided guidance and support for a number of efforts and big ticket items that have occurred this past year. Mr. Ted Morozic, when he's on loan from the facilities team, has done a great job helping our overall technology efforts when needing cabling and various troubleshooting support. As Executive Director of Technology, I have worked closely with all teams and team members to support the overall technology efforts of the department. I work closely with the District Learning and Teaching Department to support the district learning goals. and as a member of the district's cabinet, I was also responsible for implementing and supporting various needs of the district's COVID response. This is our Those Who Excel award-winning technology department. In addition to our technology department, we also have a number of other people to recognize. Our technology assistants were invaluable this year, as our instructional technology plans shifted a number of times. This group was critical in ensuring all of our students had working devices while participating in the hybrid setting. They fielded the technology needs of our students and families while working with both their school and our technology department. Our technology committee is an advisory group consisting of a number of both faculty and administrators. This group worked through a number of various technology-related topics, from input on providing teacher training and learning environment devices to the integration of various SAPA practices and supporting our 100-day technology goals. This team of people was instrumental in helping to steer the technology efforts of the district this year. And then our technology services intern class at York High School. Our TSI class is facilitated by Ms. Kristen Bartholomew. In the face of extreme hurdles this year due to COVID, Ms. Bartholomew worked with both the York and district administration to support the needs of the TSI program. When students couldn't attend school in person to fix machines, Ms. Bartholomew was somehow able to leverage various resources to succeed in maintaining the integrity of the program. I would also like to thank Mr. Brenton Russo, a York High School alum, who was able to support Ms. Bartholomew in the TSI program through some difficult circumstances. All right, moving on to our process. Our 200-day goals allowed us to increase our focus on the integration of instructional technology. This included, but was not limited to, training for leaders, professional development for coaches and teachers, data collection, and continuous long-range planning. We worked to adopt and implement various inter-system data transfers like Zoom, EDU, Destiny Library Manager software, and Apple School Manager. We established various programs, including our Learn Platform system, which is helping us with the SAPA Act coming up July 1st. We also created our D205 remote learning resources and tutorial parents for our website. Moving on to the technology update. This slide outlines our general infrastructure roadmap. For 2021-22, our priorities are to upgrade all of our access points at York High School and upgrade roughly 13 access points at the district office. We're also going to look to add access points to our outside of our schools, 2 per building. This will allow students, teachers, and administrators to gain internet access on their D205 learning and teaching devices, both inside and outside. We'll also complete phase 2 of our printer copier refresh, which consists of replacing 34 multifunction printers across all buildings, and continue to future-proof and update and configure our enterprise-level network infrastructure. Moving along to our instructional technology roadmap. This slide outlines the general instructional technology roadmap of future years. For the 2020-2021 school year, our focus was on upgrading our K-5 teacher laptops, phase 1 of our elementary classroom displays, our middle school CAD labs, integrating iPads across our EC1 students, or for our EC1 students, and integrating roughly 600 iPads in our 612 classroom display pilot. For the next 2021-2022 school year, our focus is on refreshing ancillary staff machines, our network and data team machines, and some supporting organizations. I am recommending that we move forward with a 612 classroom display refresh and identify funding for it, but I'm not formally recommending purchasing a specific configuration at this time. Although we are currently piloting 3 to 4 different configurations across our 3 middle schools in York, due to circumstances of this past year, the configurations were installed across the February-March timeframe. With the relatively short amount of time our teachers have had to pilot the different configurations, I'm recommending that we postpone the specific purchasing decision until next year. I would like to see teachers have more time for feedback and have more input from the tech committee before we move forward on a specific configuration. For future years, we have identified completing our classroom display upgrades, refreshing the York and middle school teacher machines, and continuing with the yearly grade 1, grade 5, and grade 9 instructional device purchases. If you look at the next slide, this is still focusing on devices. I am recommending that we change our student learning device refresh schedule beginning with the upcoming school year. Instead of purchasing student devices in various years, I believe we should prioritize grades 1, 5, and 9 each year. What this looks like is replacing three cohorts of devices each year which helps the district maintain a fleet of devices robust enough to handle the demands of the curriculum. With a 4-year useful life expectation, it allows the district to sell the devices before year 5 and recoup any remaining fiscal value. This helps provide consistency for students, parents, and teachers. Everyone knows exactly when a student will receive a new device, when they reach grade 1, or grade 5, or grade 9. The consistency also helps for short and long-term budget plans. If a change in learning devices is decided, this model allows new devices to roll up instead of having to replace multiple grade levels at a single time. This also helps the learning and teaching department prioritize training and professional development for the new devices. Looking at the specifics of the student device refresh cycle, it's a 4-year useful life cycle for the learning devices. This helps maintain a yearly purchasing expectation, helps maintain our fleet for future-ready learning needs. In year 1, devices are purchased with enough computing power to be relevant in year 4. Although upfront costs are a little more, the long-term experience of our students improves and the resale value of the device will increase. In year 5, devices will be sold at the market rate. If devices cannot be sold, they will be recycled responsibly following all state and federal recycling laws. When entering grades 1, 5, and 9, students will receive a new device. This provides consistency for teachers to help with planning. Any changes can be phased in. It provides consistency to help with professional development planning and roadmaps. It provides consistent expectations for families. For students entering grades 1, 5, and 9, families will be issued a charger that they will be responsible for managing for 4 years. They're going to get a new charger at the time their child receives the new device, and then they're expected to manage it for the life of that device. Looking specifically at student devices at grades 1, 5, and 9. Grade 1, we are looking at the 8th gen iPad. It's a 32 gigabyte model with an integrated keyboard case. Leveraging the iPad as a learning device at grade 1 is consistent with current practices. The keyboard case helps maintain 360-degree protection from damage. We'll also purchase a smaller 10-unit charging platform for each first grade classroom. The overall cost for the device will run roughly $403. The current expected resale value after 4 years is roughly $80 to $100. In grade 5, the Chromebook, we're either going to look at the Lenovo 300E or the Lenovo 500E, depending on delivery expectations. We will purchase a 4-year warranty and accidental damage protection. The overall cost of the device will run about $440 and have a resale value of roughly $25. Grade 9, the Chromebook, we are looking at the Lenovo 500E 2nd gen. This model is similar to the 9th grade Chromebook purchased last year with some improvements. It has an upgraded processor, moving from an N4100 to an N4120, which pretty much doubles the clock speed. We're doubling the amount of RAM from 4 gigs to 8 gigs and doubling the amount of the L2 cache. This device is a more robust device than in previous years and will be able to support the curriculum from 9th all the way through 12th grade. Due to the upgrades to the technical components of the device and the impact of the supply chain of various components as a result of the COVID circumstances, unfortunately, the cost of this device will increase for our 9th grade students for SY 21-22. The cost will increase from $320 currently to $390 next year. So what will 2021-2022 look like? I kind of gave a little timeline there. For ECC, kindergarten, grades 1, we're going to do iPads. We're going to allow the iPads to roll up from 1st grade this year into 2nd grade next year, which will be a big change. Grades 3 through 12 will remain on the Chromebooks, but 5th grade students will receive a new one, and then the 9th grade students will also receive a new one. At the end of this year, we're going to collect all student devices that were handed out to students. These devices are going to be wiped, reconfigured, and redistributed per student cohorts for next year. All students are issued and will maintain a learning device and charger that will be specific to them, similar to the model this year, but a change from years past. All grades 1, 5, and 9 will receive a new device and charger, and general expectations are that students will manage their device each day with teachers providing specific direction. Looking toward our classroom upgrades, as I mentioned earlier, this year we really focused on the display pilot, the Clever Touch Impact Plus series interactive flat panels. Phase 1 of the Clever Touch display was completed this year. We have roughly 70 plus classrooms using one of these new interactive flat panels and adjustable mobile carts, and roughly 10 rooms where IFPs were wall mounted per construction specs. We are currently in the process of compiling teacher feedback from all of our elementary buildings, but the feedback we've received so far has been positive. Teachers like, and I quote, the infinite whiteboard and stylus options. Students love being able to see the display and interact with it. They love using the IFP for math class because they can engage with manipulatives. Being able to write directly onto a web page. The IFPs work great when leveraging Zoom, and they appreciate that they can sign into their Google account to access class content right from the board. Some of the opportunities we realized this year were some wireless connectivity reliability on some of the machines. Our network team is working directly with the CleverTouch manufacturers to remedy this. And some of the feedback was the size of the mobile carts that the IFPs are mounted to are a little bit big. And we are reviewing different mobile cart options that reduce the size of the footprint for next year. In terms of recommendations for next year in phase 2 of the IFP deployment, it would look something like this. By purchasing roughly 72 devices and pausing the Lincoln School upgrade while we wait for construction to finish, we can complete the elementary upgrade for all of our core classrooms, which is big. We would prioritize completing the Lincoln School classroom upgrade as part of the construction specs in future years. The next step would be to review all of our non-core spaces. This will be prioritized in years SY 22-23, school year 22-23. We're also looking to finish phase 2 of our printer refresh. We completed phase 1 upgrades of 35 multifunction machines during this school year. We also moved these machines to a payment program called One Rate. One Rate is a K-12 option that includes a consistent monthly charge for schools that moves away from the historical usage click charges. The goal is to reduce these click charges and keep a more consistent budget for our schools. This year, we did a fleet analysis to consider the remaining needs. Based on that analysis, I recommend we move forward with phase 2 of our MFP printer upgrade. This looks like leasing another 34 multifunction printer machines and moving these machines to the K-12 One Rate program as well. And then looking at the next slide, this is a general summary of our technology budget plans for future years. Based on the included information, we're going to keep on our E-rate upgrades. We will leverage E-rate again, and based on the National School Lunch Program and our free and reduced numbers, we do qualify for a 40% reduction for hardware purchases used to support internet connections. Student learning devices. As part of the shift to the new device refresh cycle, we will purchase a new learning device in grade 1, 5, and 9. We will unfortunately have to increase the device cost for 9th grade families to $390, but their new device is more robust and should provide an improved end-user experience throughout their York tenure. Learning environment updates. We will keep the learning environment budget pretty flat. This does include roughly $85,000 established to move forward with the grade 6-12 classroom display upgrade. Faculty staff devices, we did see a significant reduction in the cost due to our faculty and staff group already having been upgraded within the last 2 to 3 years. We will prioritize ancillary staff and technology team hardware for the upcoming 21-21 school year. Equipment purchases, we see a significant reduction in the cost of non-E-rate equipment purchases. The focus here is to prioritize network management and security without having to purchase a ton of additional hardware. These costs will allow us to enact real-time policies for how users and devices connect to our network and what they can access. The repair supplies budget, we saw an increase this year for our preliminary estimates due to the COVID circumstances. At the beginning of the year especially, we needed to increase our available devices to support faculty and staff working remotely. We pulled devices that were originally slated to be resold and or recycled and leveraged an outside service to help speed up the repairs. Our existing wireless hotspot program with Sprint changed, and we had additional costs to engage with both Comcast Internet Essentials program and T-Mobile's Project 10 Million program to support our qualifying families and their home internet needs. We needed to purchase classroom chargers for iPads across various early childhood and kindergarten classrooms. We had to purchase peripherals like scanners to facilitate the daily health certification. We ended up assuming costs for MFP relocations due to spaces being converted for quarantine rooms. Moving into next year, I expect to realign our repairs and supplies cost budget with past years. Our software licenses, warranties, purchases, services budget, we see a big reduction here in big part because of the 5-year term service we paid in year 1 with a reduced cost moving forward, meaning we paid for 3 years this year. So for the next 3 years, we shouldn't have to pay. This happened for Sentinel-1, domain names and various certificates, Equitrax servers, VMware. Our specific cost for instructional software remained flat at roughly $21,000. Professional learning is projected higher here due to Power Scheduler training for school admins, and a national conference attended by the tech director, and ongoing training for tech department staff. This is contingent on if we can move forward with training and national conferences again next year. We'll see. It's kind of TBD. And then our O&M costs are expected to continue to decline because of our recent ISP agreement with Illinois Century Network. Over the course of the 5-year agreement, we are expected to save almost $400,000. Revenues, the costs are applied based on the revenue of our K-5 tech fee and our 612 tech fee minus our 16.5% fee waiver projected for next year. The 9th grade York revenues are also applied as well. Both will be used to offset the cost illustrated above. If you're still awake, if you have any questions, I gladly take those now.
Thank you. So I want to ask one question, and then I'll open up. So in a year where, obviously technology became the driver or, necessity of instruction, what formal feedback, I guess, are you getting from all of our like our students, our teachers, and also our families, so that, I feel like while it's fresh in everyone's mind, what gaps are there? What professional development do teachers feel that they would like to have after coming off this year, so that we, it's part of kind of the reflection of here's where we were, here's what went well, what didn't go well. Is there any process in place, or are you thinking about doing that? And if so, then when does that information come back to us?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So from a teacher perspective, as we've been going through professional development experiences this year, we've been getting real-time feedback as it's been happening. We also just recently went through kind of an evaluation of our instructional technology use at the district. Feedback we got from an outside vendor was very positive, so a lot of positive gains. I am planning on, at the board's direction, to reach out to families regarding their experience with our technology. I do recognize the circumstances that we were in this last year, starting with the springtime last year where families were given devices. I personally visited at least 3 different families this year, trying to help support some of the struggles that they were going through. So I do expect the feedback to be a little bit skewed just with the kind of unusual year that we've had, but definitely it's a good idea to get that feedback, and we'll get that done before the end of the school year.
And I don't think it's bad. I mean, it's okay if it's not all positive, but because I think that's how you learn. And I think that we need to use it as a learning experience to, do so we can do better moving forward, as technology now will become an even greater piece of instruction. We won't leave that behind. So
Absolutely.
okay. I'll let somebody else has a question, or Beth.
I just had a quick question about the flat panel screens. There was some training that was done for our staff. Is that the 3 days training that's listed here?
Yes, we had a pathways training is what it was called. It focused on 3 separate instances. The first instance was really the technology understanding of the device, just how it functioned. The second option, or the second activity, was focusing on integrating the device into your curriculum, what that looked like, and how you can advance the lessons you've already got with using the technology. And the third one, which is kind of a capstone meeting to kind of dig deeper into some of the experience that the teachers were sharing. All of our faculty that received an IFP this year were offered the training, as well as our instructional coaches and all of our TAs, our technology department. So they were engaged in that, and we're currently right now swinging back around with our schools. We're meeting with them 1 school a day, every other day or so for this next week and a half, to get specific feedback from teachers about what they thought went well, what they're looking for next year, and as we start expanding the program and bringing more IFPs in, what suggestions they have for us to kind of focus on for next year.
Great, thank you. That was going to be my question, just what the feedback was on the training and if they think that there's more that they could use in that area. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Overall, the feedback has been very positive for the IFPs from both the teachers and students. Students love them.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, RJ, for the report. I think one thing that I would urge you and your colleagues to have in these budget discussions is, to build off of what Kara was commenting on, what are the top 1 or 2 pain points for the user experience when they interface with our technology systems? And then how are we going to put some capital behind easing that? And I think that's something we should be doing every year, and just kind of specifically calling out. So like when I look at the the technology budget, that's one of the top things. You know, there's just basic infrastructure costs, right? And making sure we have the appropriate amount of infrastructure in place. And then there's user interface. And so I would appreciate an update when it's appropriate on just what are those top pain points.
Okay.
You know, like for me, it's using Power School. You know, I don't know how to use that darn thing.
Okay.
And it's very frustrating, you know, and is there a way to make it easier? You
Got
know, I'm sure others, yeah. Right. So, but we should find out, you know, what frustrates people when they use our technology, and then let's fix it. You
Okay.
know, and then the following year we'll get what the new answer is and try to fix that.
Okay.
A more continuous improvement mindset on the user experience, I think, would be great.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, RJ. This is a great report. Just a question, or I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but thinking about the 4-year life cycle and just thinking that that's kind of long for elementary age student, I'm wondering a little bit about your break plan. What happens when they break, and at what point does who's paying for repairs? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. It's so the 4-year user cycle is just based on experience in terms of the longevity of device. At the end of year 4, yes, I would agree the devices are definitely no longer reliable enough to use to support our curriculum. When we purchase these new devices for next year, we're also bringing with them a 4-year warranty for the device. So any repairs that happen, we should potentially be covered. From a family perspective, it's a first repair is covered by the district, and then beyond that, the costs are shared with the family. So the idea is that we're trying to teach and support our students to make good decisions and take care of their devices. Inevitably, something happens all the time, and if and when it does, this 4-year warranty and the TSI program are there to hopefully support us and get the device turned over quickly.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, RJ. I'm going to revisit from last year and the first, I'll start that way, the whole IFP deployment. And I know that the board approved that the tech department was going to be doing the implementation of that.
Yep.
So was that able to be finished? And that's why you're talking about phase 2?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So all of the IFPs that we purchased this year have been deployed. They're in the classrooms currently being used right now.
Okay. And then I think that you were answered Beth's question about the professional development around that.
Mhm.
And that'll just continue as we deploy it to new classrooms?
Yes, yeah, we really liked the Tierney support program that we use, the pathway programs. We got a lot of good feedback from the
Okay.
teachers, so we're going to continue with that moving forward.
Okay. So then when you look at this new proposal, I'm taking it as you're proposing something different for us.
For the purchase of the student devices, the refresh cycle, yes.
Yeah. I'll start with bigger picture. So you had you have your budget, right? And with this new proposal, this is what you're presenting as your budget?
Correct.
And it looks like it's in alignment with what we typically do anyway. Is that true?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah,
I would
That's what
expect
Chris
it to
Weldon
be
said.
more expensive, so that was good that it's not. And then secondly, from a family impact standpoint of this proposal. So what was it, now versus what we're proposing is 1st grade, 5th grade, 9th grade, the families are incurring a cost. How is it, can you help shed some light as to the difference?
The cost model should be the same for the families. So right now, the 9th grade families, they purchase their devices, that will stay the same. We're looking though at elevating the robustness of the device for our 9th grade students to ensure that they can leverage that device for their 4 years in high school. But for the 1st and the 5th grade families, it's still the tech fee. So that's going to stay the same this upcoming year for K-5, and it's going to stay the same for 6-12.
Great, so it's the tech fee 1st, 5th, and then just as it has been as we've deployed devices at the high school, 9th grade, pay for the device.
Correct.
So nice synopsis, thank you. That's really what I have. I think you're asking us, for what your plan is, and just trying to get a sense of what we've done and then what the impact is with what you're asking us for.
Yep.
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you, RJ.
Thank you.
All right, next is the superintendent's consent agenda. Did anyone want to pull an item? Okay, if not, then could I have a motion for the superintendent's consent agenda?
I move that the Board of Education approves the consent agenda items as follows: A, personnel report; B, appointment of school treasurer and resolution approving surety bond of treasurer; C, resolution approving treasurer's special surety bond for Series 2021 general obligation bonds; and D, one touch point contract renewal.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Athena, second by Beth. Jenna, you can call the vote.
Mrs. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes?
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio.
Yes, 7 ayes, no nays, motion passes. Right, next is the superintendent's agenda action items. The first item is resolution of Lincoln decommissioning and demolition. I'll turn that over to Chris, Mr. Weldon.
This is just a standard resolution for demolition of Lincoln that we have coming up here in June. This is required by school code.
Okay, I wanted to, it's my understanding, so I just want to make sure that I have this correct, that on May 24th, it is expected that the Lincoln School project will be on the City Council's Development, Planning, and Zoning Committee, and that after it gets through that committee, at that meeting, then it will go to the full council for approval on June 7th. Is that what you've anticipated as well?
That is my understanding.
Okay, so that way, that project will be able to stay on time, and if it does not meet those two meetings, then would we be in a delay situation?
I believe so, and that would be quite problematic from a timeline standpoint.
Okay, all right, so I just wanted to make sure that those dates were out there and that the board knew that that was what was expected, so the project would move forward on time. You guys are aware we're working on wrapping up the Emerson easement that involves West Avenue, so we'll finish that up hopefully in the next couple weeks. So if anybody else has questions, feel free.
No, I believe, isn't there an open house scheduled for May 22nd at Lincoln?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
And I think the times are listed for the community
yes,
and families to go in and see Lincoln one more time.
yeah. But yeah, this timeline is very tight and it's very important. We need to get these approvals so that we can get going. This is a very tight timeline to be open for the fall of 22. And, right? Yeah, 2022.
yeah.
So, yeah, we appreciate it.
Okay, so if I could have a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution authorizing decommissioning and demolition of the school facilities.
A second?
Okay, motion by Beth, second by Courtney. Were there any other questions or comments? Karen?
Yeah, I mean, just a point of clarification there. Thanks for pointing out the dates of when official meetings take place to move the process forward. But just want to communicate that, you know, Chris, you and Todd and the project contractors have been doing everything that they need to in each step, working with the city and working with all the organizations that we need to keep things on target. So I just wanted to highlight that too. So there should be nothing in the way. And so what Kara and Linda are highlighting are those dates that are upcoming that are critical. Otherwise, the project is in jeopardy already, if that's the case. So that's important for us to know that everybody's been doing what they need to do, and, you know, we're working through the process, and things, if there is something, should have been highlighted actually before now, along the way.
Okay, anything else?
Just, when is the actual demolition scheduled? And it's, you know, it's after the formal approvers are granted, correct?
Yes, that's correct. I don't have the actual dates of, Todd is working towards disconnecting everything. He's following the steps, but it's soon. It's in June or soon after approval.
Okay, got it. Just want to make sure we have the order of operations correct. And obviously this project has been voted upon by the public. It's been out there for quite some time. Hopefully we can get timely approval so that we can move forward and meet the commitments that we've made to the community to have that school open as planned. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, you can call the vote.
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman,
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes?
Mrs. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio.
Yes, 7 ayes, no nays, the motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024 agreement between the Board of Education of Elmhurst Community School District 205 and the Elmhurst Teachers Council Local 571 American Federation of Teachers. In February 2021, the Elmhurst Teachers Council, ETC, and the district administration, on behalf of the District 205 Board of Education, began negotiations for a successor contract. The two parties met every Thursday evening for 4 hours beginning on February 11th, 2021 through April 15th, 2021. There was only one Thursday during this time frame that the parties did not meet, spring break week of March 25th. The ETC and the board team came to a tentative agreement on Thursday, April 15th, 2021. This tentative agreement was ratified by the ETC on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. The Board of Education has been kept apprised of the ongoing progress during the period of negotiations and has been consulted regularly in regard to board priorities and desired outcomes for the successor agreement. The board bargaining team has addressed the priorities of the board and made strides in shaping the direction of how District 205 will be able to operate as we move the district forward. The board bargaining team is recommending without reservation that the board approve and ratify the tentative agreement. As was alluded to in the rationale that I just read, the Board of Education gave direction and identified priorities with specific parameters throughout the entire negotiating process with the Elmhurst Teachers Council. Therefore, tonight, there will be little, if any, discussion at the board table regarding the contract presented. The events of this past year have challenged all of us in new and unique ways. We recognize that feelings in our community have been strong and many times at odds with each other. And yet, it is our collective resolve to move forward with a shared focus on the academic success and well-being of our students. It is in this spirit that the following statement has been prepared for tonight. Joint statement by the Board of Education, Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205, and the Elmhurst Teachers Council. As partners in the education of the students in Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205, we are committed to working together toward positive outcomes for all students. We believe all students must learn and grow in our schools. We have a shared responsibility for our students' academic growth and their social, emotional, and physical health. We support high-quality, in-person instruction as the most effective learning environment. We make decisions based on what is best for students. And we are a future-focused community of learners that embraces innovation in order to accelerate student achievement. It is with these beliefs in mind that we move forward with a continued commitment to working together on behalf of the great students that we serve. And so I'm going to now turn it over to the Finance Chair, Mr. Collins, who will speak to the financial piece of the contract.
In this contract that we're considering tonight, the financial piece is fairly simple. On average, the teachers will receive a 1.2% annual increase to their base pay in each of the 3 years of the contract.
So with that, I would ask for a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the resolution. Oops, wrong one, sorry. We already decommissioned. I move that the Board of Education approve the July 1st, 2021, June 30th, 2024 agreement between the Board of Education of Elmhurst Community School District 205 and the Elmhurst Teachers Council Local 571, American Federation of Teachers.
Second.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay, you can call the vote.
Mrs. Troutman,
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Hassler,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio.
Yes, 7 ayes, no nays, the motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2025 agreement between the Board of Education of Elmhurst Community School District 205 and the Elmhurst Paraprofessional and School-Related Personnel Council, Local 571 IFT-AFT. In March of 2021, the Paraprofessional and School-Related Personnel Council, PSRP, and the district administration, on behalf of the District 205 Board of Education, began negotiations for a successor contract. The two parties successfully negotiated a 4-year contract meeting on March 23rd, 2021 and April 16th, 2021. The PSRP and the board team came to a tentative agreement on Tuesday, April 16th, 2021. This tentative agreement was ratified by the PSRP on Friday, April 23rd, 2021. Again, the Board of Education has been kept apprised of the ongoing progress during the period of negotiations and has been consulted regularly in regard to board priorities and desired outcomes for the successor agreement. I did want to just make a comment to go along with this. This year, you know, our PSRP have, like everyone, had to really pivot. And I just want to acknowledge their service to the district during this difficult year. And they have used their creativity to pivot and support students, teachers, and families in new and unique ways. And I want to say thank you as a part of this contract tonight. So with that, I'll just ask for a motion.
I move that the Board of Education approve the July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025 agreement between the Board of Education of Elmhurst Community Unit School District 205 and the Elmhurst Paraprofessional and School-Related Personnel Council, Local 571 IFT-AFT.
I'll second.
And before I ask for any other comments, Mr. Collins, could you give the financial piece of this?
Sure. This one is a little more complex because we have 3 different classes of workers in this contract. But let me start out by just explaining who is in the PSRP group. And those are our administrative assistants, our secretaries, our campus supervisors, and aides to students. And I mean, that's not the whole group, but I think that gives a good example of the people, the employees that we're talking about in this agreement. And this is a 4-year agreement, and raises depending upon the classification of worker and the year. Those raises range from about 2.5% to 4.5%. And I will point out that our lowest paid workers are receiving the largest raises. Throughout this 4 years, this will also get our lowest paid group of workers up to a $15 an hour wage a full 18 months before that $15 an hour becomes the law, the federal minimum wage. We have had difficulty filling positions in this group of our employees, and I mean, in my opinion, they are our unsung heroes. They do some very important work, and truly deserve to have their wages increased to a more competitive level, so we can attract people into these jobs. That's my summary.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, you can call the vote.
Mr. Kaczynski,
Yes.
Mrs. Hostler,
Yes.
Mrs. Stufen,
Yes.
Mrs. Troutman,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mrs. Arvanites,
Yes.
Mrs. Caforio.
Yes, 7 ayes, no nays, the motion passes. All right, next is Superintendent's Communication, Item A, COVID metrics and factors update. Dr. Yonke, I believe that's you.
Yeah. So I want to thank Kevin Rubenstein for continuing to update how we present this information in trying to respond to parents and to also communicate our advocacy for changes to guidelines and mandates, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between those. But we did write in this document, there are some things that we must do, including face coverings right now, unless students are eating or drinking. Social distancing, that 3 feet is okay except when eating. It needs to be 6 feet. Students who are ill with COVID must stay home until cleared by their physician, and students who are deemed close contacts, which is closer than 6 feet to someone who tested positive, have to quarantine. And, this is a difficult time right now because we're back in school. It's great. But we are having a lot of quarantines, and we are required to follow these. I think people say, well, why don't you just decide not to follow these things? And the simple answer is because we actually lose our protection, and if we don't follow the mandates, we can actually have schools shut down and programs closed. So there are things that we have to continue with. That said, we continue to advocate for changes, in particular to the rules for quarantine. We have some information in this memo about the number of students who have been quarantined this year and the number of students who have tested positive that were in quarantine. And the number is very small. It's less than 1% of students that were quarantined tested positive. Although you also have to qualify that by saying there could be many students who during that quarantine were ill and asymptomatic, or ill and were quarantined long enough to be able to come back to school, and we never knew of the illness. So that's possible. It's probably likely that there were more, but it still is a lot of kids who are quarantined that never become ill. And so attached to the memo this week is a letter that was sent from a group of DuPage County superintendents to the State Board of Education, and asking them to reconsider, especially since, the thing that is the hardest to take is that they say it's okay to have kids 3 feet apart, but for quarantining purposes, they use the 6 feet rule. And that is frustrating to us. It's frustrating to parents. We continue to work on that. And trying to change that. I think masking rules are going to change, especially they are changing for people who are vaccinated. We know that vaccinations will be available for children as young as 12 very soon. It appears that those approvals will come. And as we as adults that have been vaccinated see a difference in our how we feel, the confidence that we feel in going out, and we're very eager for the impact on schools as vaccinations. We saw a 90% plus drop in the number of cases among our staff, and those cases have only been among a few staff that were not vaccinated. So there have been very few cases since our staff had the vaccinations available. We are also working on providing vaccine clinics for students. We are tentatively scheduling one for next week that Dr. Rubenstein can talk about if you want some more information about that. Our ratio of students quarantined is approximately 9-to-1. Again, it's higher for high school students, much lower for students in a self-contained classroom. A high school student that travels to multiple classes is going to have more close contacts, or a high school or middle school student because they change classes. And again, we've had 4,700 students who have had to quarantine, and of those, only 13 tested positive. We've had a slight uptick in cases since students came back April 12th, but not significant. We also discontinuing the saliva testing for the rest of the year. There are only 3 weeks left. We also discovered that most of our positive cases are coming from kids who are sick and go to the doctor. For example, 2 weeks ago, we had 25 students that were diagnosed, had positive tests. Only 4 of those were detected through the saliva screener. This week, there were this immediate past week, there were 19 positive cases, and 3 of them were detected through the saliva screener. So we have decided to discontinue that. I think it's highly doubtful that we would do that next year because of the availability of vaccines, and I expect the rate of transmission or positivity to be way down. So, Dr. Rubenstein, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just that we are hopeful to do a student vaccination clinic next week somewhere in the district on Tuesday or Wednesday through Jewel Osco, and then another one through the Illinois Department of Public Health, which is an equity-based clinic for students and families who have had a tougher time having access to vaccines. So typically people who don't have access to the internet, those sorts of things. So our families from low-income backgrounds, those sorts of things. So we are doing some interesting reach out outside of school, those sorts of things for families after school, and those are on Saturday, May 22nd, and then Saturday, June 12th. So those are being set up, and that seems to be going well. And then you have the rest of the regular metrics there. So I do want to just thank Dr. Yohanki not only for giving that entire report, but also, which is really great, but also for consistently pushing all of us and questioning and advocating and saying, why is that happening that way, or why are we doing things this way? Because it pushes our thinking. And even if we end up in the same place that we started, because we have been through so much together, it still reminds us of why we do things the way we do. So
I shared with the team this morning an article that I read this morning about masking and in particular outdoors, and I'm hoping that very soon we're going to have changes in masking masking requirements.
Yeah, one other thing is that we announced earlier today that there, because of the fact that Illinois is moving to the next phase of its reopening guidelines, on Friday, that York High School's graduation, instead of having 2 ceremonies, they're going to be able to have 1 ceremony. So Dr. Bagdasarian and his leadership team met with a group of students and some parents to review some feedback. And rather than opening it up to more people with more guests, they decided that they wanted to have 1 graduation ceremony to allow the students to graduate together in 1 group. So that announcement was sent out today. And so students and families seem very excited about that.
Thank you for highlighting that, because that's fantastic. I know students are going to be really happy about that.
Mhm.
I just had a question. Because of that change, will that affect any of the other end-of-year events, like the middle school graduations, or will those be altered as well, or do we just not know that yet?
We simply, yeah, we just found this out on Friday,
Yep.
and I
So-
think Dr. Bagdasarian moved very quickly, and
Yeah.
I think the others,
We sent out actually updated end of the year guidance to all of our administrative team members yesterday afternoon. And so I know that they're working really hard on updating all of their plans. So
Thank you.
so there's one ceremony at 1 o'clock on that Sunday, May 23rd, and there is a rain. Also, they can still just do one if it rains, although the students get 3 tickets. One of their tickets will have to watch in another, either in the auditorium or a gym. But they will still be able to have the whole class together in the field house and with 2 of their guests. So it will work out well. So.
Great, thank you.
I just really want to do a shout out to everyone. I mean, prom and graduation at York. I mean, thank you. Hurrah. You know, that's great signs. Besides, you know, going outside and not necessarily using this, as you said, Linda. But, you know, I mean, that took a lot of coordination and even, you know, quickly moving from Friday afternoon's announcement to an announcement that went out today to the seniors and the parents. So, you know, really kudos to everyone. Thank you. Big shout out.
I had a few questions, and Linda, thank you for you answered a lot of my questions in your report. One question about saliva testing. I know we signed a big contract earlier in the year for saliva testing. Do we have to pay out that entire contract, or do we just pay for what we used?
We just pay for what we used.
Okay,
And
so
it was
significantly
substantially less than what was predicted.
significantly less than what we signed up for. All right.
Yes, I don't know if you have a figure.
I didn't get the final bill yet.
Okay, but it's, yeah. We
Okay.
stopped it sooner than we had originally contracted for, but, so it's substantially less than.
Great. All right, that's great news. Parents tell me that their perception that our quarantine rates are higher than other school districts. Do we have any data to confirm or dispute that?
The 9-to-1 ratio is pretty typical, is what we're seeing from other. I think this is anecdotal, and me talking to other superintendents and some other principals. One thing is we have very good attendance in District 205, and including in our high school and middle schools, and other districts are not seeing such high attendance. In fact, you know, kids are purposefully staying remote to avoid having to quarantine, and so I really believe that that is one reason. But you think 19 last week, 25 the week before, that's not a huge positivity rate, but multiply by 10 just about, and that is about the number that you get of quarantines each week. And out of 8,000 students, I don't think that's a huge number. It's still too much. I wish we didn't have to quarantine anyone. And I think if we could do the 6 feet, or the 3 feet, I'm sorry, we'd be way down on quarantines. But it isn't. This is not an optional thing, and that's why all of these superintendents are signing this letter to try to get that changed. I don't believe that we're doing something different than other districts. I really believe we have fewer students in classrooms. In one local high school, 40% attendance rate. Ours is 97 at our high school.
Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you.
I'm sure that's not the only answer, but that is one anecdotal.
All right, and then my last question is I have elementary parents telling me that their kids are being asked to eat their lunch on the floor, which, I mean, in my mind poses probably a greater health risk than COVID does to an elementary student. What can we do about that? I mean, we're spending millions of dollars to get kids out of classes in basements in this district. They shouldn't have to eat lunch on the
So
floor.
maybe we can talk afterwards and you can tell me what school that is and we can look into that.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Is that all right? Thank you. Because Jim's point is kind of really what I wanted to talk about. I think, thank you for pointing out and reminding our family members that there's not a lot of wiggle room on some of this stuff.
Right.
The masks, the quarantining,
Right.
these are not our local decisions.
Right.
These are Illinois decisions. But I do think that there is a lot of inconsistency on how these things are being implemented from school to school. And, you know, when some kids are eating lunch on the floor and others are not, like parents see that, they talk. And I think the consistency across the district is something that I really think we should look at. I mean, not just about how they're eating lunch, but about quarantining and, you know, there are, same boat as Jim, there are parents that have reached out to me that said, you know, my daughter had to get a COVID test to come back to elementary school because she had a runny nose because of allergies. Now that's an aggressive stance that's not being taken across all the schools. Or another family reached out and said, well, my daughter was close contact quarantined, and his school said he also had to quarantine, but that's not happening at other schools. So I don't know if there's a breakdown in communication with who's implementing these at individual schools. You know, why are, you know, teachers who are vaccinated required to get COVID tested if they're out for a day? I mean, this shouldn't happen. Yeah, I just think there's a lot of inconsistencies going on across the district. And if we could just tighten it up, I think, and make it consistent so that when parents talk to each other, they're not saying, well, that's not what's happening at my school.
Okay.
So that's really what I would encourage.
Okay.
And I like the consistent reminder that these are not our choices that we're making. And moving forward, we're very hopeful, due to your advocacy, due to the board's advocacy, that these things will change soon.
Yeah.
We can definitely look into those. The piece about, for example, somebody who is vaccinated, even if you are vaccinated, if you have symptoms, you do need to get a test to come back to school at work. That's part of it's still a part of the protocol. That is it is absolutely still a part of the protocol. You can still have COVID, even though you have been vaccinated.
Yeah, to me, that just seems, you know, I don't know. If we could just examine it for consistency is what I'm gonna
All right.
re-ask.
Okay.
Across all things, lunch and snacks and.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Linda and team, for the report. So one of the really important points that you raised was I think you said about 13 students that were quarantined ended up getting COVID. And what was the denominator there?
4,701.
Out of 4,700, yeah. So that's I know that it's not a perfect data set, but you know, I hope that folks making this policy, first, I hope other districts will follow and put this information out in the public.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that it's paid attention to, because that's just not a student-friendly policy. If we have
It is not.
if we have kids, you know, at a 1% rate when you're going into quarantine, that should be fixed. And there's only a couple weeks of this school year left, but hopefully we can get that cleaned up. And I know we're going to touch on it in a few minutes in terms of what our board's been doing along with our admin team to advocate for those changes. But thank you for putting the data together, first of all, and I hope others will follow with putting similar data out. And then lastly, I hope that just as a strategic direction, we can keep moving towards finding ways to say yes to restoring normalcy for the district. Whether it's, you know, starting with advocating to get some of these mandates loosened, reopening our facilities to third parties, you know, things like what Karen and others highlighted with regards to graduation and things, which are great. Programming, obviously our community values in-person learning at an extremely high level. So we should be keeping that in mind when we think about programming decisions for our students and just keep moving in that direction. Thank you.
You know, Jim, I want to clarify on your, I had heard of one school that students were sitting on the floor. I thought that issue was resolved. If it's the same school, then, you know, maybe it's a different school. So I just wanted to point out that I did hear about one, looked into it, thought it was resolved. So we'll
Got
see if
it.
it's the same school.
Yeah,
or
perfect.
not. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So thank you for the report and all the information. It takes a lot to manage a situation and move forward. Of course, answering a lot of the same questions. So thank you for the data, Linda and Kevin, for all the information you've put together. I just want to highlight and echo a little bit of what was said about this movement to, you know, hopefully we're on the back end of this and things will start easing up with some time. But moving a little bit towards thinking about what student life is like right now in our schools for all of our kids and finding moments when we do have some control to make decisions that enhance that learning environment for our kids, both social, emotionally, and academically. At this time, I'd prioritize social and emotionally, especially for the kids who, you know, there's lunch is different, recess is different. There's so much that's different right now. And I feel like we might have some control on a day-to-day basis to norm and bring some consistency and life back to our schools in a way that we have not seen in a little over a year. So thank you.
Oh, Beth?
I just had one other thing relating to the changes in some of the guidance with the new phase that we're going to be in. And I don't know if this is something that we decide, but I know there were some guidelines for athletics where like parents cannot go to away games as of right now. And I'm not sure if that's a Western Conference decision
I believe
or
it's
if that's
IHSA, right?
or IHSA, but I just was wondering, you know, if there's some room for us to kind of move forward in that direction and we have any say in that, I think that would be.
I will check
Dr.
into
Renz,
that.
yeah. Yeah, do you know if the IHSA or the West Suburban Conference is looking at revising spectator rules?
I do not know at this time,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah, I
We'll
haven't
check
heard
into
that
and
part
get
yet.
back to you.
Yeah,
I figured
especially
it's
since
probably-
the outdoor
Right.
numbers are changing and
Right,
we're having
right.
a graduation
Right.
that
The
A lot of
has
spring
indoor
sports are
spectator.
outside.
3,000 people
Right.
outdoors and these
Right.
sports are outdoors. It seems
Right,
silly.
right.
But
Yes, it does.
Right,
Yeah.
and everybody's distanced and wearing masks and when they're there, and it just seems like, you know,
Yeah.
like Athena was saying, to be able to, for parents to be able to, you know, participate in the great things their students are being able to do now as we're opening up. I think, you know, that's just another,
Yeah.
you know, a good thing we can do for our families if we can try to advocate for that. So, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just as we wrap up, I just want to, you know, the say yes thing. You know, Karen bringing it, I think the high school's really done a good job at, you know, they had a concert this week that was
Yeah, it was
beautiful.
lovely.
And it was outside, kind of Ravinia style, and actually everyone loved it. And it was just amazing to hear the kids play music and, you know, so just, you know, the high school, a special thank you to them for really figuring it out for the kids, because I think it's really helping both the community and the kids. So special thanks to them. Just,
Yeah, Kara, if I can add, if you liked last week, tomorrow night is in same place, 6 o'clock, the senior choral concert
Oh,
on the front steps of the high school. So
that's great.
I have to get the schedule from Jim.
Sorry, Jillian.
That's great.
good.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And I think it's supposed to be nice. Okay, anything else on that? All right, 3 weeks, end of
Yeah.
the year. Okay, tweets of the week.
Yes. Yes. Yes, we have it. Great. Good evening to the board and to our public that happens to be watching on YouTube. it is time for tweets and posts. We're growing, folks. Tweets and posts of the week. Not just social media is not just limited to Twitter. We cover great school news on all of our social media channels. So tonight we have three examples of great things that are going on. Again, it is not an exhaustive list. It's just some of the best of. So heading into our first slide, and this comes from a parent, Elena Kutry, and many of you may know her, but her tweet says, a team of at Elmhurst D205 teachers nurtured this kid's confidence. Thank you for seeing his potential. And she does several hashtags. Hashtag abilities, hashtag industrial tech student of the year. That was the award for her son. Hashtag inclusion works. And she goes on to identify or at several responsible folks or folks that she wanted to pay attention to, including her principal, Jackie DeCipio, at Bryan Middle School, and then also assistant principal, Mr. Sheehan. So we're recognizing Elena for pointing out the benefits of our inclusion programming at District 205. Again, hashtag abilities, hashtag inclusion works. Moving on. You may recognize one of the individuals, not necessarily the student in the photo. Sorry, Chris. It was just a good tweet. This one is recognizing Sandburg Middle School. At Sandburg D205 is their handle on Twitter, for a recent post thanking an 8th grader, Libby Barron, for presenting her ideas about creating more eco-friendly lunches. And Cheryl Spencer, our Director of Food Services, and also Frank Dahlman over at Sandburg took the time to hear her presentation. And it's just an example of student ideas coming to life and going through the process of presenting your ideas and making those known. So the tweet says, how can we make our lunches more eco-friendly? And goes on to shout out Libby Barron for presenting those ideas. So special thanks again to Mrs. Spencer, also to Chris Welton and Mr. Frank Dahlman for their support of that student's ideas. And moving on to our last one, this one is just super cute. And it involves our youngest students at Madison's Early Childhood Education Center. And during a meeting, I believe it was our EC12 meeting with all of our principals, someone put in the comments that there were hatching chicks over at Madison. So we zoomed over there, grabbed some pictures, and Madison posted on Facebook, and it says Madison Friends and the Chicks. So it was part of an observation for the students, not only just to see the chicks hatch, but go through the process and the stages and with their clipboards and identifying various portions of the process in science-related matter. So it has been a great week in terms of kids stuff, student stuff, and being able to document that on social media. It was great to see the kids here tonight in person. That return to normalcy is happening. Excited because prom is this weekend. We're doing some great things, and our high school was noted for it, featured in the Tribune for their plans for the prom. It has garnered national attention at this point. Just as a showcase and a bragging point, Inside Edition, many of you may know or be aware of the news magazine. They will be with us at prom, covering our prom for the great things that we're doing. So it's a great season. I'm going to prom because Inside Edition is there. It's going to be a great weekend. Go Dukes. Hashtag Ignite D205. Thank you, everybody.
Good. Have fun. I'm not allowed to go. I'm not allowed to.
Can I do something?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, my son had experienced that when I was principal. Yeah. That was so fun. Yeah, he told me to keep my distance. I want to point out that tonight is Marianne Lemke's last board meeting, and her last day is this Friday, and we are all sorry to see her go, and want to congratulate her on her new position and thank her for her work in District 205. and to tell her that we will miss her very much. So thanks, Marianne.
Yeah. Okay, so couple board communications. I have a couple things. First of all, legislative advocacy. We talked a little bit about it last meeting, and since then, couple updates. In particular, House Bill 2789 was a point of discussion that seems in its first form was taking a lot of local control away. So I was able to speak with Senator Glowiak. It's now in the Senate. Share the perspectives of our community and the concerns. So we had a good conversation. It is, as of right now, the bill's not been assigned to committee yet, which means it won't be called for a vote until it is assigned to a committee, just as a procedural point. And so in that, in speaking with her, and then, a few community members have reached out as well. I would like to know if everyone's supportive of, we put a communication out this week that just gives some information for our community. There is a lot of activity in Springfield right now as the session comes to a close, so that the community knows, kind of what they could do, how they could advocate, some links, our elected officials, if they'd like to reach out, and that could go out this week from us, so they have that. And then we also will continue to advocate for our community. So I just wanted to know if that was okay with everyone, that we work on that. And then also just as a couple other points, and Karen might be able to speak to the LEND piece, but I did speak to the head of IASB, and they also were advocating for districts, regarding this bill. So, there's a lot of eyes on it. Right now it's just sitting, but there are a lot of eyes on it. And I believe LEND, which Karen represents us on LEND, they sent a letter.
So the letter that Linda put in, the metrics, LEND was organizing that on behalf of the superintendents. They are in a lot of the negotiating meetings. Peg Agnos, who's the executive director of LEND, who I've worked with for the 10 years I've been on the board, and Jen Figuarelli. The amendments look better for us. All the districts are pretty much, thinking the same thing as we are, but it's important for us to advocate at superintendent level, at board president level, at LEND representative level, as well as the community. I mean, there's a lot more legislation that's coming out that I think our community should be aware of. They're mandating a lot more things. And well-intentioned, but when it gets to the process, it might not be what everybody intended. So it's important for everyone to educate themselves. So I think it's a great thing for us. I know that we had to do that back in Senate Bill 1 with when that was happening. And this is another time that I think that as we all come together, we can have better discussions and make sure that the best of education and the best for students actually is what ends up happening. Even though the intent is usually there, it doesn't always keep going in that direction. And so I think very strongly that, that another time for us, for everyone to be involved and be educated, and for us to be on the same page, but talking about it from different avenues is extremely healthy. And I know that LEND is doing that. I mean, they have a lot of respect with the legislators, and so they are in these meetings even and negotiating on our behalf, and they represent what we want, which is important. If you not have anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good, thanks. Yeah, Courtney?
Yeah, I completely agree that we should be loudly and vocally advocating against this. I think that, it was a pretty quick turnaround in the House, this bill, and I know that there's been some amendments to it, but I fear that not taking action sooner rather than later could leave us out in the cold as far as being a voice and representing our position and our community's position. After fighting for a year to get our schools back open, I certainly don't want that control to be abdicated to anyone else other than us. So I do think we should be vocally advocating for that. And I also think that there should be ways that we tell our community how they can advocate, because, you know, they're very kind and speaking with us, and you have very strong voice. Our community is very strong. So if we can somehow let them know what they need to do their part for this, I think that would be very helpful.
Add to that, Kara, when we were working with Senate Bill 1, the PTA actually has a position. I don't know if someone heads that up, you know, that is the legislative piece. Maybe it's time again for us to ensure that that is being filled, and that we begin to work together, because they can then be that arm, because, you know, it has to be from the community too. It can't, okay.
Yep,
It's got to
that's
be
a
them directing it. But if we all, like the superintendents are going out from there, you know, we are as a board, the community, you know, separate, but that we help them understand what their path is.
Yep.
For how they, okay.
Exactly. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, and then I have, so last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and so Mr. Kaczynski had a great idea that we all share a little bit about our favorite teacher as a way of just, you know, showing how much teachers impact lives, and that we're appreciative of teachers that, you know, impacted our lives, and also the ones that are in our district impacting our students, some of them our own children. So I'm gonna let him start.
Yeah. And actually, I was taking Linda's lead on the great video that she put out. I thought it was a great personal touch, and so I wanted to recognize Mrs. Delaney, who was my first grade teacher at Emmons Elementary School in Antioch, Illinois, and I was the young child who would raise my hand repeatedly and ask how many minutes until I get to go home to my parents. And, you know, as I grew over the years, I came to appreciate just how wonderfully patient she was, and I thank her for helping me get off to a good start. And Mrs. Hockney, who was my middle school English teacher, taught me how to write an essay and how to give speeches. 2 skills that I still use, what she taught me today in my professional career almost every day. And then lastly, Mr. Sanderson, who taught Intro to Economics at the University of Chicago. And I think I attended every office hour that he hosted for about a year and a half, and just inspired my love for economics and finance, and used the lessons he taught me every day in my career. So different stages of life, but thank you to all 3 for the impact that they had on me and my family.
Right. So here we go. Thank you, Linda, for kicking us off with the video. That was great. A neat addition, not just thanking everyone. I'd like to thank everyone, though, in education. You know, I know that it was teacher appreciation, but to me, it's the employees in education appreciation. I hope that doesn't offend anyone to expand it, but I think that that's important. Everybody makes a difference. We've heard stories of janitors in the buildings, and my kids can still talk about the Jackson janitor, you know, and everybody's impactful. So I think that that's important. So I thought it was bad by having 2. So I stuck with pre-K to 12. First off, Mrs. Wilson, my first grade teacher at John F. Kennedy School, who taught me phonics. We thought at the time she was tough, she was a hard teacher. But in hindsight, she wanted us to learn how to read. She told me I was a curious creature, and I didn't appreciate the value of that statement until my adult years. Reading has helped me constantly learn all of my life. What she was teaching us was a lifetime lesson for love of learning through the ability to read. And Mr. Carruthers, from Hall High School. He was my high school counselor. And he identified upon my junior year registration that if I took one more class, I could graduate high school a year earlier and be the first in my family to go to college. So he helped me prepare a presentation in front of the Board of Education. And I was able to graduate in 3 years and got a scholarship and started my path and started a very good trend in my family. And I think that's important. And so equity is really important to me and for those reasons. And so that's why I volunteer for this position and have for a decade. It's so important. Everybody is important. We make a difference in the lives of children. They might not realize it, and we just have to realize that we're doing the right thing now and be there for them. And you know, years down the road, the light bulb might go off like it did for me. So to both of them and many more is why I'm committed to the best in education and the best of education. I thank everyone. Thanks to all of you who still make a difference in the lives of our students. Really, thank you.
Yes? All right. Does that mean I'm going? Okay. So, see, and I was trying to narrow it down to one, but I'll go with two, and they're both high school teachers. And thank you, yes, to all teachers and anyone who works in education. What a year and what a time to hopefully begin to celebrate not just the end of another school year, but new beginnings as we move forward. But for me personally, and growing up in neighboring Addison, I had two high school teachers who had an impact on who I became and what I did with life. And one of them was a familiar name, Coach Paul Parpet. He's an IHSA Hall of Fame coach, coaches a lot of different sports, never girls sports, but he was my gym teacher. And just the patience, the noticing, the awareness of when a student might need a trusted adult or a relationship or someone just that they can laugh with, and developing those relationships with kids was what he was good at. So much so that later in life, when I graduated college with my business degree, I thought I wanted to go into teaching, and I went to him to ask him what his work life was like. And he encouraged me to follow what my passion might be and explore it. And now I'm still in education today. So that's Mr. Paul Parpet. And the second one is actually kind of nice because Miss Sherry DeAmbrose is retiring from education this year from Addison Trail High School. And the number of students that she had an impact on, not just me and my graduating class, but students before us, students after us, just a tremendous woman. If you don't know her, know her. Such a big heart, always a supportive adult who just loved kids and loved education. And so thank you to both of them. I wouldn't be where I am today without them.
So in my elementary and middle school years, math was not my favorite subject. I actually dreaded going to math class. And at York High School, my math teacher ended up being Mr. Portencaso, who was just had a fantastic sense of humor. And he shared his weekend fishing stories with us every day. And he had like a fishing show on the radio, and he was just crazy about fishing. But we all got to know him very well and had a great relationship with him. And he just wouldn't tolerate anybody saying that they weren't good at math. And he made us buckle down and figure out challenging problems, and we did it together so nobody felt silly about it. And he just renewed my confidence in my math skills. And then I ended up really liking math, so I always appreciated that from him. So thanks to Mr. Portencaso.
So I'm going to go with one from way back when. In third grade. Mrs. Samillo was my third grade teacher at PS5 in Yonkers, New York. And it was not an easy neighborhood to live in. And, you know, she used to leave the class. So it was not so much what she taught me in the classroom, but really what she taught me about who to be outside the classroom. She used to walk down the street every day to the point where my grandmother could come meet me and pick me up because just timing wise, but she knew that, you know, it wasn't a safe neighborhood. So every day, and every day she would like say something different, like, it's not who you are, or not what other people tell you you are, it's who you are that will define the decisions you make. And you can be a leader, and just positive. And she always made me feel safe and secure, and made me think that there was no limit to what I could accomplish, whatever I wanted to do in life. So always remember those walks every afternoon. But I will say, I translate it to one of my son's teachers, who sat down, and anybody that has a little boy knows that they sometimes are a little rambunctious, and she pulled him into class one day, and anyway, it was my son. He has long white hair, blonde hair, and so we were sitting down with a behavior pack, like, this is the behavior strategy. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. And I was, as most of you can understand, pretty upset. And I'm like, and if that doesn't work, we're cutting your hair. And this teacher, to this day, if she's listening, she's still in the district and is probably laughing. She's like, Mrs. Troutman, we don't need to go that far. Like, she was, I know that Jack can be a leader, and I know, but he still remembers that. Like, she took his side. She was there kind of talking about all the things he was doing wrong, but she took his side and advocated for him, and he hasn't stopped advocating for himself ever since. So, third grader teachers.
Yeah, I just will mention briefly, I already did mine in the video from last week, but I'll say one for my son who attended York High School, graduated from York High School. And Zach he did have a little bit of a problem with his mom being the principal, and gave me instructions. He said, you can say hi to me in the lunchroom, but just keep on walking. Don't stop, don't hover. And, you know, he didn't. But the place that he found refuge was in the pool with Coach Mark Lorick, who I am eternally grateful for channeling that energy and turned him into an outstanding swimmer. He was on 2 relay teams that had records in the pool for a long time. He recently, he lives in Maryland now. Zach was here. The one person he wanted to see was Mark Lorick, and it had a big impact on his life. So I appreciate him very much. And he made them swim a mile on New Year's Eve, which made them too tired to do anything else on New Year's Eve, which was great. Yeah.
Oh, it was hard to choose. So I have 2. One is my science teacher in 8th grade, Mrs. Davis, and she, you know, teaching is a blend of art and science, right? Like it's a little bit of art mixed with the science of learning, and she just did an amazing job, you know, teaching us that there was so much to learn and discover in science. And then what she did that was so fascinating is she would go into character and she would read to us from different books, even though she was a science teacher. And you know, it's funny in 8th grade how much we all just love to be read to. And I just found that to be the most amazing year that, you know, she would read to us. And she was, you know, very dramatic, and it was a lot of fun. And then the other one that made a big impact was my high school math teacher, Mr. Oyer, who I was one of the few girls in math class. I was in a small school, and very quiet, and he instilled in me that girls could do math, and that I did know the answer, and that I should say what the answer was. And then he also was the student council sponsor who drew me out and got me to run for student council. And I have to believe that probably somehow laid the groundwork to where I'm sitting here. So both of them had a big impact on me, just wanting to always learn and discover and realize that I could do it. So, yeah. Thanks.
All right. Even though I had forgotten about this assignment, I was not stalling for time because this one is actually pretty easy for me. There are 2. Many of you had the 2 themes, so here's my 2 theme. my birthday is about 2 weeks before the cutoff date for going to school. So I guaranteed I was the youngest in my kindergarten class, a brand new 5-year-old, and really had no interest in being in school. Really preferred to be home with my mom. Yes, I was a mama's boy, especially at the age of 5. And so I just want to say thank you to my kindergarten teacher at Field School, Mrs. Brown, who made me feel welcome, comforted, took care of a crying kid pretty much 3 or 4 times a week, who just wanted to be home and not in school. But she gave me an appreciation that school was a safe, welcoming place. And the second teacher is Mr. Brown, I will say the famous York R. Warner Brown, my high school or my junior year honors English teacher, who, by the way, my last week of junior year figured out that Mr. Brown and Mrs. Brown were married. I wasn't very quick. But R. Warner Brown would write on the chalkboard with a big capital B and a big capital S. He said, when you are writing, you need to be specific. And that carried with me throughout my 38-year business career. And probably the most valuable writing lesson I ever learned. And as he was lecturing on why, he would erase the rest of the word. And he said, because if you are not specific, you are left with this, just the initials BS.
Well, thank you everyone for sharing, and special thank you to everyone on our staff for all the work that you've done for our students in a very challenging year. So thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. So we have some upcoming meetings. May 13th, 2021, Finance and Operations Committee here at 5:30. May 25th, 2021, Board of Education meeting here at 7 o'clock. May 26th, 2021, Special Board of Education meeting here at 5 o'clock. And June 15th, 2021, regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting here at 7 o'clock. So if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.